So that is my spiel on collaboration, and I'm sure all of you guys have different ideas and different perspectives, but you know, we want to kickstart that and jumpstart that between our two zones and doing some of that. So again, we're hoping for some outcomes from this meeting today, and hearing all your voices and like putting together some things that we can take back to our respective zones. I am looking, and at this point, we're going right into planning. All right.
I did have one thing I wanted to, just kick in. I was trying to get the hand raised thing. I mean, the thing about collaboration, as had been brought up in the meeting earlier today, I mean, this thing of creating more bureaucratic level, like within the zone, to me appears to present a challenge. And like a lot of times I envision the collaboration or even the individual zone thing being more of project-based in nature. I mean, the thing where you start, collaboration and establishing standing committees and stuff like that. I mean, let's face it, the NEZF in general terms is not supported by almost anybody within the Northeast zone from the regions. There's not really a big regional tie-in to the zone. And I don't know the autonomy zone, but I would pose the question to them also. I mean, this thing of collaboration then requires a connection to the rest of the service structure, which, I've been at the zone now for a while and I just don't see it. So, I mean, this is the one thing that I question when we get into this high level, strategic planning that's not really connected to the rest of the service structure.
Oh, good observation, Bob. And just, the way I look at that is that a challenge presents an opportunity, and some of those things. I mean, especially when it comes to zones. And I can definitely say, using task teams and projects and those kind of things that don't have a lot of overhead, but presents us a lot of return on a small investment, and putting together some things that are not bureaucratic in nature. I'm not a big fan of a lot of overhead and a lot of bureaucracy, but I am a big fan of planning, and I am a big fan of strategic planning and vision, and using the resources that we have in a strategic way that can have a positive impact on us carrying our message. So and more to come on all of that, Bob, for sure. But I'm glad you brought that up. That's what we want to hear. And I got a couple of people with the hands up, and then we're going to take those two, and then we're going to keep it moving. So I think I saw Rob and Clarence.
I'm an addict. My name's Rob. I'm in the greater Philadelphia region. Craig,
Hey,
thank you for chairing. Good to see everybody here. As far as collaboration, I guess what I see is that and a lot of things that were just talked about, there's pockets of power in all these regions. Like I heard, Southeast talking about the BMLT and all the energies they put into it. Public relations is going on in the Northeast. There's all these pockets of service. And it would be really nice that, we get to know where these pockets are. Who are the go-to people? Like, in other words, if we wanted someone in the area saying, look, I need to do some public relations, like, boom, here's the person you got to go to. Like, why don't you get connected with this person, maybe on a virtual meeting? So I see a gap there that we're not connecting, like, the people who want to get involved effectively between the regions, between the zones, that if these resources are out here, let's get the information out to people, like who are the leaders? Who are the subject matter experts who have experienced the growth of this, and trying to connect those people. I think the collaboration will happen once we get those people connected.
Yep. Good point, Rob. And I can tell you, and I'm sure Chris can tell you more, we are working on that. That is something that has been identified, and we are working on trying to close that gap and in communications and connectivity. So Thanks for calling that out. Clarence, and then we're gonna move on.
I just want to piggyback, and I guess, I don't know if I heard what Kelly said. I know something that was effective for the Philadelphia region when it came to members' understanding of RDs, RDAs, and zones. We actually put on, and Craig, were you here when we did? No, but you remember we did this. What we actually did was we went out to each area, the RD, RDA, and we have a little RD team comprised of 2 or 3 people. We're used to anyway. We went out to each area and asked for time on the area level and explained to them exactly what the zone was and why we were in the zone, and reached out to members at that time, let them know, we want people to become involved for anyone that wanted to join and want more information. So we did a face-to-face, and unfortunately it's not possible at this time. But what we found out was it made it easier, and members actually got a more understanding when we did a face-to-face, as opposed to putting it like in area minutes or regional minutes. They knew who the RD was, who the RDA was, and we answered questions for them. So it became more understanding and accepting of us being in a zone, because a lot of people question, well, why are you in a zone? Why we need to do this? Why you need to do that? But once we did the face-to-face and explained it to them, people were more understanding. And actually, we have more people in the greater Philadelphia region now that's on board. I'd say like 90 to 95% of people are on board with us being in the zone and understanding what the zone is. And then the really good part, Kelly, comes in when we ask for financial help. So because they have an understanding of that, it's much easier. I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
No, thanks, Clarence. I appreciate that. And 2 thoughts came to mind before we move on, that when you were saying, one of the biggest gaps I've seen over the last years is when the World Service Conference restructured and moved away from the standing subcommittees, and the standing subcommittees from the different regions brought together people with common interest and people that were just kind of doing the same kind of service. And that gap, in my experience and perspective, has never really been fully remediated. That gap has never been closed. And I see the zones as an opportunity to close some of that service gap that we have between PR over here and PR over here, and the inconsistencies that we have by bringing H&I people, PR people together in a zone and bringing them together and helping close that gap that happened as a result of those standing subcommittees going away. And I'm just speaking from personal experience, because I was the chair of one of those standing subcommittees. I was the H&I World Chair. So there's just this opportunity that I think, and the other thing, and I think Dan reminded me of it in the chat, was that the US zones right now are working on collaboration, communications, and working together from that aspect of all the US zones. So there's things going on right now to try to help with a lot of that. So appreciate all you guys giving that input. That's the kind of stuff we need to hear from people. So thank you. All right, so the next session we want to go into is just around that, planning, and spend some time drilling down into that and getting some of your ideas. But before we go into another slideshow, and Sandy, you got your hand up. Did you put your hand up, Sandy?
I did. I'm sorry. I'm Sandy. I'm an addict. And I was involved in services in this regional, whatever, I guess world services, zonal services before, but I took a little time off. And so I've heard this chatter since I got involved again about the US zone, which back when I was involved was like a dirty word. It was like a renegade thing. So now I guess that's like a thing, that's an organized thing. So maybe somebody can catch me up about what is the US zone. It was like the USSG or something. There was some kind of like renegade thing back then in those days, for those who were around back then. But now, is there like a US zone that I don't know about?
All right, so that's a good question, Sandy. I'm gonna try to real quick share a little bit about that. This is not that what you were talking about, the USSSC or whatever that was. This is not that at all. There's a project at World Service called the Future of the Zones. And out of that project, real briefly, came a recommendation from those work group. And that work group was made up of representatives or people from each zone that the zones chose to be on that project. So your zone chose somebody. I don't know who it was. I know who AZF chose. What came out of that, one of the things that came out of that was to have a meeting, a periodical meeting. It's called virtual meeting of the zones. And that's all the zones within the United States, around the world, including Iran, okay? And from that came that when we all started coming together, there was some discussion with the US zones that maybe they needed to have their own little meeting and talk about stuff that's going on in the United States in parallel with all the other zones. And so it's not a formal kind of thing. There's nothing being created, Sandy, but we have been meeting with zonal, the people that are from your zone and my zone and the other 6 zones in the US. We've been meeting, discussing some of the issues in the United States, such as the slowdown in growth of the fellowship in the United States and some common kind of things. Presently, we are working on building some plans, a strategic plan to address communications, public relations, fellowship development within the United States. And so I attend that meeting and I bring back information to my zone. And I'm sure Dennis and Wilvina bring the same information back to your zone / your region, your area. So that's kind of the quick kind of description of that, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I remember Bill going to that. I didn't really know what it was about, and it sounds great, but it is a bit of a slippery slope for a few different reasons. One is we don't want to turn into an AA thing where we have a United States, NA, and the rest of the world. You know what I mean? Which is how AA does it. We want to make sure that we really are a worldwide fellowship. And the other one is if we're moving to zonal seating, are we moving to one US zone to go to world? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just a couple things there that I don't like to see the US against everybody else, which is like a lot of how the tone when I was involved before. So I don't know if this is a move away from that or toward that more, but anyway, whatever.
The answer to that is no. It's neither one. It's not AA. It's not modeled on anything that AA does, and it's certainly not. It's not anti-world, and it's not anti-world service either. It is pro just US and working together in a more common cooperation, collaboration kind of way. So it's none of that. But that's very good input. Nancy, I know you had your hand up. I'm trying to move on, but I don't want to. Can you save that question to this next session, Nancy, or you want to?
Well, real quick, there was a comment made in the chat and I wanted to just throw it out. We could entertain a shared services. In New Jersey, all of our services are done statewide. So we have a formal shared service agreement with the Northern New Jersey region. We re-sign it every 3 years. They meet every 4 months. And it's a chosen group from each region that gets together on this. In fact, they're meeting today that work on the collaboration efforts, right? Like we just launched changes to our website, which needs approvals from all the regions. And that's where these ideas channel through. So I'm just going to throw this out as an idea of maybe establishing some sort of shared service committee thing between the 2 zones. Because zones are only meeting every 6 months, it's hard to really facilitate projects. Clarence mentioned about his billboard on 95 in Philly, and shared services would be the place where they could say, hey, maybe the South Jersey area could expand the reach of that and, maybe increase, pay a portion of it. And, that's where those ideas grow. And we've been doing that for decades in New Jersey successfully. So we have a best practice that maybe we could translate into these 2 zones. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks for that idea, Nancy. Great.